Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see for those watching us on TV, we're at Radio Row here at the Super Bowl, but I'm going to be very honest with you. I have a lot of gratitude with all the people we've been able to speak with, all the NFL current and former NFL players, but I'm tired of talking about Subway sandwiches and Old Spice and Pizza Hut and Domino's and all these other things. I need to cleanse myself and talk about professional wrestling, which is why we're getting away from Radio Row. Joining us here on the phone is one of the best, Nigel McGuinness. Nigel, how are you, my friend?
Yeah, doing fantastic. Thanks, Adrian. Very, very excited about the weekend, which I'm sure you are as well, right? Have you got any bets down or not?
No bets. We try to stay away because we didn't say this before we started the interview. So I live here. This is home base for me. Matter of fact, this is one of the few times I'm here on the Strip because we try to stay away from it here as locals. And you talk about this weekend, like obviously there's a football game going on, but not only that, AEW Collision, the first time AEW is coming to Vegas outside of a Double or Nothing weekend, the very first Collision, the very first pro wrestling event at the Dollar Loan Center. That's Saturday. You can get your tickets AEWTix.com. But before that, to kick off the weekend, this Friday night at the Nerd Bar on Fremont Street is going to be fantastic as Nigel presents a magical evening. You can go get your tickets right now at eventbrite.com. And we need to get into all the magic and everything, and we will. But before we start, obviously, American football, I assume, is not one of your sports of choice. But what do you view American football and the phenomena of the Super Bowl and the NFL and all this stuff?
Yeah, I have an appreciation for it. Obviously, I grew up as a fan of the Dallas Cowboys with no idea of really who they were or what American football was, to be fair. And then when I went to university in England, we had an American football team, as we called it, the Leicester Lemmings, and kind of suited us very well. I think we only played about 6 or 7 games. I was the leading touchdown wide receiver with 1 touchdown for the entire season. So that tells you a little bit about
yourself. You way to say humble because it was only a touchdown, but damn it, it was the leading one. And ironically, as you speak, I'm like, well, hey, Tony might not like to hear this, but the Jaguars might be moving overseas to Europe, so that would be fantastic. I know they're trying to branch out the fan base. So Nigel, I wasn't aware of all the magical skills you got outside of the ring until you appeared and almost tried to kill, honestly, RJ City with all the vinegar shots. So please tell me how this came to be and also what people can expect at the Nerd this Friday.
Yeah, so my love of magic began, I think, largely when I was a kid. There was a guy at high school who did a few magic tricks, and I paid £5 because I was so enthralled to learn how to do the trick. And it was very simple, just a simple palming of a few cards. But from there, as I grew up and I started going to wrestle in Japan, a lot of times sponsors would take you out. You'd be sat out eating dinner for 3 hours, and I wouldn't be able to speak the language at the time, and so I felt a little bit awkward. So I took a pack of cards and taught myself a few simple tricks, and it sort of went from there to doing tricks for guys in the back. And a long time, people were always saying, why don't you do a show? Why don't you do a show? And obviously, they're not familiar of how different it is to do a close-up card trick versus doing a full 90-minute stage show. But ultimately, it was the unfortunate passing of Jay Briscoe in January of last year that convinced me, now's the time to do it. No time like the present. You never guarantee tomorrow. So that being the case, I took 3 weeks early last year to sit down, and I had to teach myself a lot of these magic tricks that I'd seen performed before. But I wanted to try to also not just do magic tricks in and of themselves. I wanted to tell a story with the magic. Derek Delgado, in and of itself, on Hulu, I believe you can see it there, was obviously an incredible inspiration to anybody who loves magic, the way of just using magic to tell stories about your life.
So, Nigel, I want to ask you, for people coming to the show on Friday at the Nerd, what can they expect?
It's part magic show, part spoken word. It's really an experience of heightened human connection. That's how I like to describe it. It's me talking about my career. It's me talking about how I was influenced by friends like Jay Briscoe. It's me talking about the love of pro wrestling. And it's me mixing that with magic as well. I get guys up on stage. I do some mind reading, some card effects as well. So it's just an incredible evening, and you will leave feeling like you've just watched something you've never seen before. Certainly, you know, I've been very lucky to have a lot of people come to the show who I'm friends with through wrestling. There'll be a lot of the guys coming out from AEW as well. So if you want to see some stars, come down for that. But come for the stars, stay for the magic. It's going to be an incredible evening, and one you certainly won't forget or regret.
And don't you dare bring 50 different action figures for them to sign, okay, people? Hey, real quick, I have to ask you, because obviously, you know, in wrestling and in any form of entertainment, there are some landmark cities that you get to perform in, that you want to perform in. And obviously, Las Vegas, we have entertainments of all kinds, including magic and magic shows and magic tricks and stuff. So to be able to bring this show to Las Vegas, that's a landmark for you, I would believe, right?
Yeah, absolutely. To some extent, Las Vegas is synonymous with magic and some of the greatest magicians in the world. Certainly Penn and Teller, David Copperfield, to mention a few. My great friend Matt Pomeroy from England is just starting in residence out there in Vegas next weekend as well. So he may even be at the part of the show. So it's very. I'm very excited to come and be part of it. But what a weekend to choose!
No, 100%. And now we get into the squared circle, or actually I should say into the broadcast booth. I take my interviews very seriously, research. So you see me looking down at my laptop because I want to make sure I get this line correct. In your opinion, Nigel, is this the greatest line you've ever said in any sort of broadcast you've been a part of? Quote, Christian Cage has done for turtlenecks what Britney Spears did for visible thongs. Yes or no?
It's up there. It's one of them. Either the same as that, or I forget. I've had a couple that I'm very proud of. I think that actually came from Maria Kanellis.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. You should also, I'm assuming as soon as you said that, you kind of gave yourself the Tiger Woods fist pump, and you should be proud. It's fantastic. Another thing I do want to ask you is, and I've been fortunate enough leading up to this show, talking to some of the stars of AEW, and I'm going to ask you the same question I asked them as well. You look at the landscape of professional wrestling, right? 6 days a week at least, we have TV on cable from a variety of different companies, obviously all in at Wembley, the record-setting crowds all over the place. Like, wrestling is very, very hot. And also in interviews, not just with AEW wrestlers, your name gets brought up a lot in their experience, in their path to where they are now. So it was big-ended to lead to this sentence right here. Impact that you've had on the industry and those doing what they're doing now.
I mean, I would say more so now, certainly, that I'm working for AEW. Certainly, I'm in WWE, because their vision for pro wrestling is if it didn't happen in WWE, it didn't happen at all, or it's not relevant. Then I was there to talk as someone who used to be a wrestler, but I couldn't go into details because obviously they don't own the IP of Ring of Honor. And again, to that point. So, but in AEW, I certainly think there's more ability to talk about I wrestled this guy and I wrestled this guy in Ring of Honor, or talk about other promotions as well. And that's one of the things I love about AEW, is that they don't try to have this notion that it's them and nothing else exists around it. And listen, if that's your goal, that's your aim, fair enough. Certainly they're making plenty of money. So I just love, though, as a fan of professional wrestling, that ability to talk about history that they can't monetize, talking about other promotions that still exist. You know, it's not like the Wild West, but you just have far more ability to do that.
No, and that's fantastic. And another thing I wanted to ask you, last week, lucky enough to have Claudio here in Vegas. I'm getting to talk to him, and Will Ospreay anytime now here in these next few weeks will start being on AEW full time, or at least that's the notion that I have. And I'm curious, with you guys coming from overseas, and just like I told Claudio, pardon my ignorance, but here in America there is if you didn't do it here on my TV screen where I can go, that doesn't count. Coming from overseas to America and everything that you've done, do you agree with that mentality? Was it a chip on your shoulder coming here? Is it true? If you could kind of delve into that.
I don't think so. And I think certainly nowadays the world is far more easily accessible. So something that happens on a show in England, for example, Progress are doing some great things over there. They have their Super Strong Style tournament every year that I was a part of last year. So, a great match is a great match. Now, obviously, there are certain platforms that are more visible and people talk about more, but there's plenty of smaller independent promotions in America as well, or at that same sort of level. So I don't think it's so much overseas. It's just the presence. It's just the ability to sort of see products from different places.
No, 100%. And like I told Claudia, I feel silly asking that because this man, we talk about Tokyo Dome, Wrestle Kingdom, like we're talking gigantic, massive crowds just because it didn't happen on this part of the world. But moving on, I want to ask you, I know you and Bryan Danielson aren't the best of buds. So when you hear that Bryan Danielson in an interview said, "When I eat an apple, I'm essentially eating tree sperm. Most fruits are semen." What's your reaction to that craziness?
I could make a very biting comment, but I don't want to be quoted out of context, certainly. Bryan has a very interesting opinion on a lot of things. He's a very different human being. I'll leave it at that. He's had a great career and he continues to have a great career. And once his odyssey comes to an end, then, maybe we'll see more eye to eye.
And then we'll close out with this. Just let people know once again, one more time, if you could, because pardon the connection errors that we've had here at Radio Row, just what people can expect this Friday at the Nerd with you.
This Friday at the Nerd is going to be an incredible experience of heightened human connection. There's going to be magic, there's going to be story, there's going to be experience. There'll be superstars from AEW in attendance, but that doesn't mean that, if you're just, and there's certainly nothing wrong with being just an AEW wrestling fan, you're the best in the world. So there'll be plenty of those there as well. Everyone's going to be part of the show. It's going to be an incredible experience that you won't forget and or regret. So you can go to my social medias at McGuinness Nigel to get information about tickets. There's still a few good seats available, and the Nerd is an incredible venue as well if you haven't been there in Vegas, so go there and check it out. We'll be seeing you there on Friday night, and then of course the following night and Saturday, AEW Collision down there in Henderson. Every time we have a collision, people go out of their way to try to really put their flag in the map. There's that interbrand competition in AEW. Some guys are on both brands, but speaking from someone who does Saturday night, I'm so proud of the product, so proud of everybody in front of the cameras, behind the cameras. I couldn't be happier to be part of the promotion. And if you come out Saturday, you're going to have another night that you will remember for a long, long time.
Fantastic. We will be in attendance, and next time you guys are in the city, I'm going to need you next to me away from internet connections. All right, Nigel, thank you so much for the time.
No worries. All the best. Thank you, Adrian.